Hello there and welcome back to the channel. This is Nerd World Empire, and I know I've been away for a little bit, but that's mostly because I recently got a slightly different job to what I was doing before, and it being Christmas I've been working a lot, so not had any time to do this, which has been greatly irritating because I like to finish what I start. And in the spirit of that, we're going to continue the exploration of the Dominion and all of its assets, and one of those assets is the subject of this video, which is only going to be a quick video because, to be honest, there isn't a great deal of lore on them, but I wanted to cover them because I kind of find them interesting, because they brought back Brian Thompson, who's one of my all-time favourite 90s go-to actors, to play different characters and different things. This man was one of the first people ever to be killed by a Terminator. He went up against Sylvester Cobra Stallone. He's in all kinds of stuff. He's faced off against Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's played multiple characters in Star Trek, and has played what was pretty much the greatest vampire ever in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Luke. So let's carry on. This video is about liking, sharing and subscribing, and looking at the rest of this playlist before watching this. It's kind of short. Realistically, it's about the Dosi, a race of traders who hail from a world simply known as the Dosi homeworld, somewhere in the Gamma Quadrant. They are members of the Dominion, although they are something of a junior member. Their race are very impressive in terms of physicality. They are tall, muscular, athletic, and generally people you don't want to mess with. They have aggressive personalities, but their race, despite their aggressive nature, are not a warrior or a violent race like, say, the Cardassians or the Klingons. They are very aggressive negotiators, more so than the Ferengi or many other races. They highly prize business acumen and the acclamation of wealth within their society, but because of their underlying aggressive nature, which must belie something in their culture, a historical level of violence, it's possible that this race embraced business and the accumulation of wealth in favor of more destructive interests like war and conquest, probably to save themselves. It could also mean that they have an extremely competitive upbringing, meaning it breeds this race who value not only money and intelligence but also an aggressive nature, which sometimes in their negotiations has been known to lead to fatalities due to temper tantrums, eruptions and differences of opinions, which lead to unnecessary dueling or something, which has resulted in some deaths. Something the Ferengi kept in mind in their dealings with them. The ones that the Ferengi would deal with, of course played by the great Brian Thompson, were large, muscular and aggressive, just like you would expect. The Ferengi were attempting to purchase 100,000 vats of Tulaberry wine, an order the Dosi were not capable of fulfilling. They referred the Ferengi to a much more bigger trading partner in the Gamma Quadrant known as the Karama, who were another member of the Dominion, who we will be covering in another video soon. The Dosi, though, as I said, physically are humanoid. They appear to be basically human in appearance, and I say that because although they do have facial markings, I don't believe, unless someone out there knows any different to me, those facial markings are organic. I believe it's more of a decoration or a tattoo or just simply face paint. The species wear a headdress which covers up the top of their head and their hair, while painting their face red with white and blue detailing. Sometimes in the form of looking a bit like tears, and other times in looking like a pattern. It also tends to go down their chest slightly, which, because of the style of clothing that they wear, they often leave exposed, showing off their muscular physique. This could be an intimidation tactic for when dealing with others, as other races tend to dress sort of impressive to show off their wealth, whereas the Dosi are dressing to show off their physicality, and basically go, don't screw with us, or we'll break you in half and then ask the Jem'Hadar to come and shoot your family. So Dosi, not necessarily people to trifle with, but they do seem generally honourable in their dealings with other races. Even though they are willing to deal with the Ferengi, they kind of force the Ferengi into being honest, because otherwise this race ain't gonna take no crap from no Ferengi. Other than that, unfortunately, we don't know much about them. We don't know how long they've been warp capable for, or spacefaring, or how they came to be members of the Dominion. It does seem like they fit quite well into the Dominion, however, being probably willing members benefiting from it somehow. As I said, when they were not capable of fulfilling a contract, they simply deferred the Ferengi to another member of the Dominion, which by proxy makes them their ally and what's good for them is good for the Dosi and good for the Dominion as a whole, I suppose. That's a bit of supposition on my part, but it does seem to be the case. The Dominion being, as I've stated before, a dark reflection of the Federation. What affects one part affects another. The Dosi themselves, as I said, aggressive negotiators, basically human in appearance. There's not known if there's any other external differences. They don't seem to have cranial ridges or extra fingers or digits or arms or anything. So little more is known about them, and I hope that we do see more of them in the future, as they were, for their brief appearances, for me, a memorable species. That's partly because they were played by Brian Thompson, but also because I just find the idea of this like super aggressive warrior species of businessmen and women kind of interesting. It's kind of like, I think, what they wanted the Ferengi to be in the Next Generation, but because the Ferengi is so ludicrous, you didn't get that. I think the Dosi are sort of, they got it right. They could be threatening, they could be menacing. But that said, that is pretty much all we have on the Dosi. Before we go, just a little bit of appendix information on the Dosi, and this is appendix information, so its canon is a little dubious, but we'll just cover it. Their home system, as I said, was simply known as the Dosi system. I've often speculated in Star Trek that the names of these systems, like the homeworld's calling the planet Romulus and things like that, is actually just a human bastardization of whatever of calling it that, rather than actually giving it its true name. But that's just me. The planet's capital city was Rexler D, and there was approximately 1.5 billion Dosi. They possibly joined the Dominion in the 23rd century after opening up trade negotiations with the Vorta. And one thing that isn't actually appendix information and is genuinely true was going on about the Tulavari wine trade. The Ferengi actually probably upped the order to the point where the Dosi couldn't fulfill it, because they wanted the Dosi to put them in touch with a more important player within the Dominion. This was stated by Quark, that basically Zek wanted to open up negotiations with the Dominion proper, not with basically baby Dominion race like the Dosi. So they never really wanted to have any dealings with them. But some of that information, aside from the bit about the Ferengi, is appendix, and its canonicity is a little dubious, but seems accurate. They seem to have very little dealings with the Federation, and they had no involvement in the Dominion War with the Federation and the other Alpha Quadrant powers overall, other than very likely supplying the Dominion with war materials and other assets that may have been useful for the war effort. But otherwise they seem to make no journeys into the Alpha Quadrant other than for trade, and pretty much stayed out of it. So that is the end of this video. Let me know in the comments below if you remember their appearances early on in Deep Space Nine, and share the love of Brian Thompson out there. I'd just like to say a thank you to everyone for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoy making these. If you did enjoy it, please consider giving a like, share, and a subscribe, and maybe checking out the other videos on the screen right now, and in the description box below there are links to my other social media accounts.